So this is a follow-up. This is actually going to be episode 2.5. I wanted to go a little bit further with the exposure system on this, and how the timing system of this works out. I thought maybe it'd be nice to kind of show it from a user perspective, rather than just show and explaining how it works together. So this is really what you want to be careful of. So right now, I got this camera and I have it set for 1/250 of a second. I'm just going to put it over and go, and bam, right? Let's see what happens. Actually, hold on, let me make that brighter. Okay. So watch what happens. Shoot, and it moves. Here, let me roll this over so you can see us a little bit better. Moves, right? Shoots. Moves. So this is always going to shoot, it's going to try and shoot right before the movement in order to kind of push it up the end. That gives the camera the most amount of time to stabilize and settle down before it takes the image. So there's less chance of any vibration or anything getting in there from the prior movement. Not that there's much, I just felt it'd be good to be on the safe side. So what happens though if you want to do an exposure of, let's go with 1 second, and let's see what happens now. Look at that, it moves while it's exposing, right? Okay, so that's a problem. So how do we get around this? If you want to use exposure of a little more than 1/4 second, well, that's where bulb and the Aftershot buffer come in. They're both found by moving this over to bulb. Using the adjust dial, we'll go to between the different bulb lengths. And as I stated before, interval is if it's set at 5 seconds, which is the default. I'm sorry, I need to ground something out in here, but okay, let's go to 15 seconds, right? Then bulb can go all the way up to 15 or 14. So the highest number it'll go is 60 seconds or 1 second below the interval length. So we're going to go ahead and just put this back down to 5. Set. And then bulb, we can put this on 1. Okay. And now when we go over, since we're doing a 1 second shutter speed, watch this. Watch what happens. Trigger, release, move, right? Trigger, release, move. Now it's no longer overstepping, it's no longer moving while it's exposing, so that's one area you can do it. Also, within bulb, I have an Aftershot buffer, and this is accessed by pressing in and out. Out raises the number up, in raises it down. So when it's at 0.50, this is 1/2 of a second. So that's an extra ½ second that you're giving it after it's done exposing, just to give it a little extra time. So you might find that you may or may not want to use this. If you're doing an exposure of 1/2 of a second and you're doing everything normally without any adjustments, so you're just using a default program, watch what happens. This still steps over because it's a ½ second exposure. See? So if you don't want to do a full 1 second on bulb, instead what you can do is you can up the Aftershot buffer to like 0.7. Now when he goes over, watch what happens. Okay, then it goes over. So let's say you want to do a 10-second exposure, right? You can move this, you can have 2 ways to do this. Alright, let's just go with a interval. Well, we'll just keep it at 5 second interval. Let's go with a 3 second bulb exposure, right? So if we want to do a 3 second exposure, put the camera on 3, put this on 3, and go, hit it. Well, that's not 3 seconds, that's 1/3 of a second. Alright, this next shot will be, oops. Alright, now it's going to be 3 seconds. Watch this. Okay. Now you see that? You see how close that is? That's right at the end. There's still a 250 millisecond buffer on this. Why is it doing that? Well, I just ran into something that I'm going to be putting out on the next video, which is just going to be a little news announcement, that these cameras do not actually honor their time. I was debugging this thing because it was overstepping. It turns out this actually will trigger longer than what it says. And this isn't shutter lag, because when you get up to 30 seconds, there's a 2 second overlap. So pay attention to what you're doing here. Okay, so another way you can do this, since it's in the bulb mode and it's going for 3 seconds, you can also set the camera for bulb. Okay? And then it'll expose for 3 seconds. Chronos is now controlling the shutter completely. It controls when it opens and when it closes. And then this moves. So watch this. See? Works pretty well. If you want to give yourself a little bit more wiggle room at the end, let's bring this up to 0.7, pop back over, see what happens. See, a little bit more room before it moves. So that's how you use that. I mean, if you're going from shutter speeds of faster than 1/4 a second, none of this is even necessary. Okay, it's only if you're going over with the prolonged shutter speeds, you want to be able to tell Chronos how long to do it. So let's just say you're going to do like a 1.5 second shutter. One way you can tell it is go to bulb to 1, hit start to set, to lock it in, then you can move this to 0.5. So that's 1.5. But that's going to be really tight. You're not going to have any time afterwards, so just to give it a little bit of a leeway, you might want to pop that up a little bit. So one thing you can do is just, you can completely ignore the Aftershot buffer if you want, honestly. It's there if you just really want to dial it in. However, if you're going to be doing a ½ second exposure, normally the bulb exposure is set at 100 milliseconds, and that's just to send a signal to the camera to tell it to trigger. If you're going to be doing over 1/4 second, you can just set the bulb to 1. Okay? And then if you're doing ½ second at shutter speed, okay, but something to keep in mind, watch what happens if you have your camera in burst. You don't want that. You don't want to put in burst. You want single shot mode only. So I hope this helps. I hope this explains a little bit more. And I got another video that shows, it really shows how the camera is behaving with its own timer, that it's not behaving properly. So hopefully this helps, and look out for the next episodes.